Hey everybody, this is Chase. Before we get started, I want to let you know that we had a little bit of technical difficulties during this one. There's a few times when Kara unfortunately dropped out and we edited it together the best as we could. It is very listenable. Not much is missed here. I just wanted to let you know in case you noticed it during the podcast. Anyways, here we go.
You have to just try and just keep testing things, everything from pricing to, who your audiences are to, what the offer is and what works for you.
Welcome to Honest E-Commerce, where we're dedicated to cutting through the BS and finding actionable advice for online store owners. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and I believe running an online business does not have to be complicated or a guessing game. If you're struggling with scaling your sales, Electric Eye is here to help. To apply to work with us, visit electriceye.io/connect to learn more. Now let's get on with the show. Let's be honest today, all of your customers are going to have questions. And what are you doing to manage all those questions? Do you have a help desk for your business? One of our sponsors of today's episode is Gorgias, and Gorgias is the #1 rated help desk for e-commerce. It integrates seamlessly with Shopify. We have installed it on a bunch of stores. It's also used by brands like Movement and Rothy's. And what it does is it takes all of your customer insights and information, brings it into one amazing dashboard so you can solve their problem as quickly as possible. If you want to give Gorgias a try, visit gorgias.link/honest. That's GORGIAS.link/HONEST to get your second month free. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest E-Commerce. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and today we welcome to the show another amazing founder to go with our founder series that we've been working on. I know that the audience really loves it. So today we're welcoming to the show Kara Goldin. Kara is the founder and CEO of Hint. It's a healthy lifestyle brand that produces the leading unsweetened flavored water scented sunscreen spray that's oxybenzone and paraben. I'm going to screw that one up. You're going to help me with that in a second, aren't you, Kara?
It's paraben, yeah.
Paraben-free. All right, now I'm learning something today. And most recently, they have launched a eucalyptus and lemon deodorant made with 100% plant-derived ingredients and no aluminum. Welcome to the show, Kara.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, so now I'm curious, what is paraben? There we go.
It's actually it's a hormone disruptor, and so it's used often in lots of cosmetics, actually. As a preservative, but it's not great for women as well as men, and it's something that it ends up is actually not necessary. So there's other ways to develop great products without some of these ingredients that are not so healthy for you.
Absolutely. I've definitely noticed oxybenzone free being oftentimes on a lot of the sunscreens. I myself, when I go on vacation, it's definitely an island. So I'm very familiar with seeing that on labels. So it's cool to learn more about those types of products.
Yeah, it's good. And we branched out from water. We've been doing water for a long time and have lots of different flavors. But for me, Hint was always a brand that was, developed out of purpose and out of solving a problem, and initially solving a problem for myself around, not being as healthy as I wanted to be, and figured out that these diet sweeteners were actually sort of the culprit. So for me, as I started to, just kind of live my life and do what I was doing, including putting sunscreen on, I realized that there were certain things that I knew about that other consumers didn't know about. And, my curiosity really pushed me to develop that product. And then very similar story for deodorant as well.
Absolutely. So you said you've been doing this a long time. Can you let the listeners know how long Hint has been around?
Yeah, so Hint in May this year, end of May, marks our 15th year. And, I always remember it because I was pregnant with my son, Justin, and actually got my first bottle on the shelf the morning that I was delivering Justin. And probably guilted the poor guy at Whole Foods into actually putting it on the shelf because I told him that I was having a baby and I really wanted to kind of get it done get it on the shelf before going and delivering my son, and then got a phone call afterwards from the next day from the guy that had put it on the shelf, saying that the 10 cases were actually gone that we had dropped with him. And I initially probably still getting over my euphoria or morphine drip or whatever you want to equate it to, but I was curious like who actually took the cases. And then he went on to explain to me that nobody took them, that actually all 10 cases had sold overnight. And so that was really the beginning of Hint, and the beginning of me actually, getting into the beverage industry.
That's amazing. That's the first time I've heard someone use pregnancy as a negotiation tactic. So that's a first.
It was quite effective. I wouldn't have probably owned it back then or sort of like viewed it as such. But for me, it was just kind of a thing that I wanted to get off of my plate, to get it on the shelf beforehand. But I really think he, took a little bit of pity on me, and that was kind of the beginning of it.
So back then, 2005, 15 years ago, I'm assuming that the brand was started with a more traditional business model, and then it has since evolved into kind of D2C, as they like to say.
Yeah, I mean, prior to launching Hint, I had actually started and ran e-commerce and shopping on AOL, and was, really early in terms of, actually in the beginning days of going to catalogers and retailers and getting them to come online. And I was there for 7 years and left when it was $1 billion in revenue to AOL. And I really felt like, I wanted to do I had 3 kids at that point. And as I mentioned, I had my 4th when I was developing the business plan for this. But I loved technology and I thought it was super interesting. There were definitely, challenges because certain things were not kind of like the actual technology was not there where it needed to be. But I also felt like, do I need to continue in tech? I mean, is tech the only thing that I can do? And for me, I had sort of, left that question kind of sitting out there as, I want to do something that has purpose and connects with customers and, really helps people be the best that they can be. And, if there's health involved, maybe that is something that would be really great too. And I kept thinking, and, many people, as I explained this to friends and family, they would say, oh, you should do a nonprofit, or you should, join some, boards that are helping, things that are, really, that you're really passionate about it. But I was passionate about a lot of different things. And I felt like, in many, many ways, growing up in kind of the early e-commerce days and kind of the early internet days, so to say, were it was tough for me because it just moved so fast and we were just breaking so many new grounds. And so it was hard because I was looking for kind of that next thing and I just couldn't find it. And so while I was doing that, I was really just trying to get healthy. And my, backstory was really that I had, taken some time off to have kids and figure out what I wanted to do next. And I realized that I had gained a ton of weight and my energy levels were low. I developed terrible adult acne, which I didn't even have as a teenager. And when I really started looking for the problem, and a bunch of people, doctors in particular, nutritionists, all pointed to food. And one day I really become accustomed to reading labels. And I had never before this time, but while I was really trying to solve this problem, that's what I was doing. But for some reason, I really wasn't reading the drink labels. Like I never really paid attention. And I certainly didn't pay attention to something that I was actually having every single day, which I'm convinced actually was the problem, which was diet soda. And so I was drinking diet soda every day. I mean, on a slow day or good day, however you want to, phrase it,
Mm-hmm.
I was drinking anywhere from like 8 to 12 a day of a Diet Coke, and sometimes in like the fountain sodas, etc. So I gave that up just as a test when I realized there were over 30 ingredients in, Diet Coke in particular. And then I started drinking plain water. I was never a water drinker. I didn't know that about myself, but I, sort of aspired to drink water, but I just wasn't doing it. So I was slicing up fruit to get me to really enjoy the taste of water, because I thought, like, that's the key thing. It's just super boring. And I lost in 2.5 weeks, I lost over 20 pounds. In 6 months, I lost the weight that I was really trying to get off, which was 55 pounds. And that's when I, really started thinking about everything that I had been talking about around, doing something that helps people, that has purpose, that, really changes people's health, I had stumbled upon it. And so little did I know that, I had always thought, okay, I see all these soda trucks, and some water trucks like Nestle running around. And I thought, okay, I've got to go get it into stores. When people asked me, like, when you know a lot about e-commerce, why aren't you actually bringing this online? I kept thinking about all of the challenges that, many people have thought about e-commerce and why their business isn't going into e-commerce, which was, it's a heavy product. It's, people aren't buying that way. And that was true, 15 years ago, that there were these hurdles, right? And so we continued to sort of initially do what I thought was the way to go, which was, we started in Whole Foods, which is considered specialty. And then we eventually got into conventional grocers like the Krogers of the world. Very early on, Google was actually trying to hire me to come in and do something with e-commerce and shopping. And I knew the guy that was recruiting me. And I said, listen, actually, I want to be honest with you and sort of share with you what I'm kind of thinking I want to do. And we had been sort of really like doing everything ourselves, loading up the truck with cases and delivering it to Whole Foods locally in the Bay Area. And so, I think he kind of took pity on me that I was, and maybe still wanted to stay in connection with me. So he was like, oh, you should try and get with our guy that's like cooking meals for all Google employees, which later even got bigger and became like micro kitchens. And so that was, a huge business for us and a huge, kind of impactful way to sort of get to customers even outside of stores was, corporate food service. But then about 6 years ago, Amazon reached out to us and asked us to, launch on their platform. They were just starting grocery. And I think it was about 6 years ago. I always get confused on my timeline. But basically, we, did it as a test, launched. There were only a few food and beverage items in their offering. And we, very, very quickly became one of the top food and beverage items, the beverage item that was really selling. And for me, the interesting thing about selling on Amazon was that we sort of proved it out that the customer actually would buy our product. And all of the hurdles that I talked about around e-commerce, including reasons why we wouldn't do it, like it's heavy and all of these issues, I recognized very, very early that was actually, solving a problem for customers. While it was heavy for us and, something we had to figure out, it was something that customers were actually thinking about when they went to the grocery store, that they didn't want to, carry a heavy case home. They'd rather have it delivered to their house. So that was the early days of it. And yeah, and I think I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic story. I like how, when you first got going, the heavy product was almost a limiting belief. And you're like, I don't think this is going to work. And then that actually, from a customer's perspective, is like the reason why it worked. That's so cool.
Yeah, it was just, it was really, sorry, I had to take a sip of my cherry hint here, but it was, definitely it ended up to be a benefit. And I look back on that now and I always think about things that, are sort of hurdles internally, whether it's to me or, team or whatever. And I think that how would the customer think about that? That may be the exact reason, maybe phrased differently, but that may be the exact reason why, they haven't tried your product, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't want to carry a heavy case home, like, especially in the last few years. I mean, more and more people don't have cars, right? And they're trying to figure out exactly, when they get their groceries, how do they actually like get, they're limiting the amount of stuff that they're actually purchasing inside stores.
This episode is brought to you by Klaviyo. Klaviyo knows modern e-commerce is moving fast. Between email, mobile, and web, it can be hard to keep up with consumers and personalize their experience with your brand. Think of Klaviyo as a central command center for all your digital marketing needs. With email marketing, dynamic website content, social retargeting, SMS automation, and more, you'll take back control of the customer experience and own your business growth. That's why it's trusted by over 30,000 brands like Casemate, Kapari, and Brooklinen. Ready to find out how Klaviyo can help your business grow? Visit klaviyo.com to schedule a demo. That's KLAVIYO.com.
So that was kind of the key thing. And I think for, a lot of people asked, including when I decided to launch our direct-to-consumer business internally, I went to our board and said, hey, this is what I want to do. And, I've got experience in e-commerce, and we'll set up a super bare bones e-commerce site on our end. And, we'll just fulfill it from our office. It'll, it really, really small just to kind of test it out. It's already been tested on Amazon and seems to be doing fine. But, again, like the thinking was Amazon has so many customers, and how are you going to actually get people to recognize that you've actually got your own site? And, I had said, well, we'll do a little bit of advertising, but I really, really fundamentally believed and had seen in my AOL days that, it was for the customer. There are some customers who really want to buy direct from the manufacturer. And some, customers believe that, they get fresher product direct from the manufacturer, which is not, most of the time the case. Or, they may have had an issue with a, store or third party that has nothing to do with your product, and they want to just, go direct to you. And in, times like we're recording this during a pandemic, during COVID, I mean, I think that, it's not always the case for a product. If you're not a, essential product today, if you're going through Amazon, your product may not ship for a couple of weeks. And, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. So the controls when you have your own site, getting the word out there too about why somebody should buy your product, what is, your purpose, all of those things, you just have more room to kind of tell the story. And also selection. I mean, we have over 20 products in water that we sell. Even if CVS may only have our sunscreen seasonally, you can buy it on our website year round, all of those things. And then also just a better knowledge of ultimately who's buying your product. So if you sell through an Amazon, I mean, what we were hearing early on from Amazon was that people were buying our product, and they were also buying things like, type 2 diabetes monitors or Kind bars or, healthier kind of products or products that were going to help them stay healthy. And, that for us was really, confirming that we had a product that ultimately was, what we knew it was. It was changing people's lives, right? And so it was very different than, what a soda company would do, and maybe the opposite of that, right? We were actually helping people to get their health back, which is, or keep, their health, and which was super, super powerful. And so again, the ability to connect with your customer and talk to your customer and really like ultimately launch new products off of that information too is just, really what your own site allows you to do.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Want to get each new episode of Honest E-Commerce sent straight to your phone? Join our VIP texting list for updates on new episodes and exclusive deals from our partners. Text HONEST VIP, that's HONEST VIP, to 72599 to join. By the way, we're powering our text messages with Postscript, the #1 text message marketing app for Shopify stores. Check out the show notes for a link to install Postscript for free today. Let's fast forward a bit. So a couple months ago, you guys actually debuted an ad during the Super Bowl. I think that's a crowning achievement for any brand. Why don't you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, I think every brand, especially ones that sort of think about doing advertising, that's kind of the holy grail, right? It's like, oh, one day I'll do a Super Bowl ad. And I had actually, prior to AOL, had been at CNN. And I was doing advertising at CNN. And so I knew enough about advertising and really have always, built this brand based on, getting people to try the product and love it and, share their love of the brand, individually. But I got to a point where I felt like it might be time to actually do advertising. And I had actually run into a person that used to work with me at CNN, and I just barely reached out to her. And I said, I'm just so curious if, do you know anybody over at Fox Sports, which was the one that was actually carrying the Super Bowl? And so she connected me. She knew the head of Fox Sports and connected me. And I said, hey, I'm friends with this person and just curious, are you guys actually sold out? And he said, we are, but there's actually regions, including, the one that you're in San Francisco and New York and a few others that actually do have openings. And so it ends up that for certain, shows, events, whatever, again, so I was just like thinking, this is so unlikely, but I'm more curious than anything else. And so I reached out to him and learned that basically he had openings in every single key market. And so ultimately, we sort of sat on it for a couple of weeks prior to the Super Bowl. And about 1 week prior, I remembered some lessons that I learned at CNN, which was, for events like the Super Bowl, you have to actually traffic the ad, and it has to, get trafficked through Fox Sports, and then it also has to get trafficked through the NFL for approval. And so, and that just takes time, right? Like it just doesn't get submitted to the NFL and then, you snap your fingers that it's approved typically. And so I knew that because there was inventory available, that the person sitting inside of these regions really, had a limited amount of time to go and get this thing done. And so, we ultimately kind of watched that time, that clock, and ended up putting in a bid like, not even a week before the Super Bowl was actually going on. And we got 80% of the country, and for less than $1 million, which was significantly less than a Super Bowl ad. And, again, it's like, if you really understand the total equation anytime and kind of how the other person's thinking on the other side of the table, it's ultimately, it can work to your benefit. And it definitely did. And, for us, it was, it was amazing. I mean, I think just, it really put us on the map and, I had my phone pretty much blew up that night with well over 300 texts, all coming at me at once when, everybody saw it, because it was really surprise and delight. Like, I don't think anybody expected a, smallish beverage brand to sort of, and certainly not Hint to show up. And so it was exciting, not only for our customers, but for our employees, for our distributors. I mean, everybody was just really, really excited about it.
I mean, I was excited about it. It was cool. Obviously, I've actually seen you speak before. I saw you speak in Klaviyo at the Klaviyo conference in Boston last fall. I just root for everybody in the, the D2C game, as you'd say. Like, I think it's fun when people win. So I was super excited about it myself personally.
Awesome.
Alrighty. So more recently, though, you have a book coming out this fall. Congratulations on that. What was inspired you to write a book, and what's the book about?
Yeah, so the book is called Undaunted, and I've been writing for 3 years, and really the key for me was I travel a lot, and so it's what I do on airplanes and in hotel rooms by myself at night. I just start writing as I'm thinking about just things, and it's everything from kind of why people will ask me on I'll be on a panel or on a webinar, and people have asked me like, why are you okay with risk, or have you had failures, or things like that along the way. And I just started really thinking and writing about those things. And obviously I've heard from a ton of entrepreneurs over the years who are interested in either launching a food or beverage company, or moving from a different industry like tech to the food industry. And frankly, I think a lot of those questions come in, and I just don't get to answer all of them. And I really wanted to put down sort of like the things that I've learned along the way. So Undaunted is really a mixture of business in terms of how did you do it, but also a lot of kind of theory that I've had around like life is not about putting roadblocks up in front of yourself to not do something. And it's like if you use words like failure, for example, or I could fail, then you probably won't do it. But instead, if you use words like I'm going to go give it a try and see what happens, then you might, right? And so things like that along the way that I think are really important. People who have had a lot of impact on me. I'm also a big believer. I think I talked about it at the Klaviyo conference a bit, but I look back on sort of the people that were most helpful to me, and they wouldn't have been those people that are, where I sort of got inspiration and lessons, or, kind of what other channels I'm in or whatever. It's really just about kind of like, how did you ultimately think about, launching it, or, whatever was successful. And I feel like, so often we get these blocks along the way like that. Like you think, okay, I've got to go hire somebody because I know nothing about this industry. And, like I said, I felt like it was really the people outside of the industries in different industries that were really sort of doing kind of what I was doing, that I was learning the most from, just by them telling their own story. And, that to me, I think is just, super powerful.
That's amazing. I look forward to reading that book, and I'm sure it's full of a lot of impactful advice for young entrepreneurs. Before I let you go for the day, is there one piece of advice that you think would resonate with our audience, like of new direct consumer brands per se?
Well, I think I touched on this just a minute ago, but I think that, so often people look at putting, things like, it's going to be expensive. Amazon's going to crush us if we do it right. It like all of these factors, right? And I think that first of all, you have to figure out a pretty, inexpensive, cheap, whatever you want to say, way to try it, right? Like that doesn't mean that you have to go nothing against Shopify. I love Shopify, but you don't necessarily need to go set up Shopify tomorrow in order to actually go and do e-commerce, right? You can do it in sort of a more bare bones way, like what we did. And maybe you don't have your entire selection, but you try some products and do some test ads on Facebook and some Google AdWords or whatever, just to see whether or not something's ultimately going to work. And at the end of the day, you just don't know what the customer is going to do. And even like a focus group saying, okay, customers tell me that they're going to do it. Like customers often do differently than what they say they're going to do. And so you have to just try and just keep testing things, everything from pricing to, who your audiences are to, what the offer is and what works for you. It's not to say that, affiliate works for everybody or doesn't work for everybody. It doesn't, like all of those kind of aspects of it, I think you just have to go out and try lots of different things. And that's the most important part.
That's amazing. Kara, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And if you want to reach out, I'm on most social channels at Kara Goldin with an I, Kara Goldin. And and definitely check out Hint at drinkhint.com.
Awesome. I'll make sure to put all those links in the show notes for everyone.
Cool.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show and sharing their journey and knowledge with us today. We've got a lot to think about and potentially add into our businesses. Links and more information will be available in the show notes as well. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, feel free to reach out and learn more at electriceye.io/connect. Also, make sure you subscribe and leave an amazing review. Thank you.